Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today. My name is Kara Bishop, and I am the Communications Director for the City of Lafayette. Today, representatives from several city departments will be sharing information about components of a comprehensive plan to combat crime in our area. We are live streaming this press conference, and it will be available for future viewing at the YouTube page of the City of Lafayette address. At the conclusion of this press conference, we will be passing out some press packets that will be highlighting everything that is discussed today, and the representatives will be available for interviews and questions afterwards. Thank you again for your time and attendance, and I'm going to leave it with Lafayette Mayor Tony Rosworski to get us started. Thank you.
Thank you, Kara, and thank you to everyone that's here today and to the media that's here. We certainly appreciate you being here today. I'll tell you right from the beginning, this press conference is going to take a little bit of time. It's not going to be a quick one. We have a lot of information today that we want to share with you and that we want to share with the public because we think it's very important. And over the last several months, we have been working here at the City of Lafayette and the Lafayette Police Department to look forward on what do we need to be doing to go into the future. We know that there are citizens that are concerned about crime. We know in certain areas of town that we've had spikes in crime. But we also know that there is a lot of good things going on at the Lafayette Police Department. Tremendous work that's being done that people probably don't know about. And we think that we should share some of that also, and then share what we see, some new things and new initiatives that we're going to put in place going into the future. So we do have a lot of things that we want to get covered here today. I don't think it's probably any secret to anyone that the spike in crime and a lot of the crime that we see is drug related. When you look at everything from burglaries and thefts to robberies to different types of crime, particularly those crimes that we would consider more violent, many of those have a drug component, whether it's somebody buying drugs, selling drugs, using drugs, some type of conflict that occurred because somebody is high on drugs, that a lot of what we deal with, there is that narcotic component, particularly meth, heroin, and spice. And so what we're going to do today is, again, like I said, we're going to talk about what we're doing, what we're going to do, but it's also a call to action for the entire community. It's going to take all of us working together at a lot of different levels to truly make an impact on this issue. It's not something that the police department can just get done by itself, even with the new initiatives that we're going to be talking about today. And first, let me say that the police department and our citizens do a great job. Overall, Lafayette is a very, very safe city. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people a day that live here, that come here to work, go about their business, and never have one contact with criminal activity. But we do know in certain areas there is work to do. Our stats are still relatively stable from where they've been over the years. About 89% of our crime is property crime, and about 11% is what we would consider more violent crime or crime against person, and that's stayed pretty stable. But we also know that as the drug use, and it's, again, no secret, you see it in the paper, you see it in the media, we hear about it across the state and across the nation with heroin, that we're going to have to do some things differently and implement some things to really work on combating that. Here we also have that added, it's a plus, and it can also be a negative, that being right on 65 between the Chicago area and between Indianapolis presents unique challenges for us also when it comes to criminal activity, whether that's transportation of drugs or people that are able to come into the community quickly, commit some type of crime, and leave. We also know, we've seen from past incidents, that it's out in the rural area. To give you one example, the CVS out on 231 that was robbed 3 times, those folks were from Attica. So we know that we have people coming into the community, people here in the community, and so it's going to really take that comprehensive overall strategy, but not just at the local level, but at the state and national level, to really try to make a serious dent in this problem. And so we're going to talk about some of those things today also. I think one of the things that I want to get through to everybody, it really is important to me. I'm incredibly proud of this police department and the work that they do. Most citizens don't know because we can't talk about everything that they do and ongoing investigations and things that are being taken care of. But the reality is there are men and women every day that are putting their life on the line to serve this community and to keep it safe. You know, we have 137 sworn officers. We have 44 other civilian personnel. We have 23 volunteers. We have 3 animal control officers, and even down to the 24 crossing guards to get all the kids safely across the street every day getting to school that fall under the direction of the police department. You know, that's 231 people that are day in or day in out that are doing things to keep this community safe. They work in various capacities. You know, we have a street crimes unit, we have canine units, detective units, we have evidence technicians, we have detectives assigned to technology to keep our children safe, to track sex offenders. We participate in the drug task force. We have a SWAT team that for the 3rd time in a row, the only team ever, won the state championship. We have a community outreach division, criminal crime prevention specialist, and we deliver training to our citizens up at the police academy. And that's really just a small sampling of what goes on here each and every day. And I think in light of some of the national discussion, I think some of that gets lost actually to what is taking place day in and day out, not only in our police department here, but in police departments around the country. As I stated earlier, we know that the vast majority of all our violent crime is drug-driven. And one of the areas that we have been really working hard on is our street crimes unit. But we haven't talked much about what they've done and some of the arrests that they've made. But I think today is an appropriate time before we look to the future that we talk a little bit, so you know in the first 6-7 months of this year what the Lafayette Police Department Street Crime Unit has really been able to accomplish. So at this time, I'll first call Chief Flannelly to the microphone, and he'll talk for a little bit along with Sergeant Milady, and then I'll come back and we'll talk about some of the new initiatives.
Thanks, sir. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Again, I know we do have a lot of information to cover today, and for those that know me know that sometimes I can get a little bit long-winded, so I'm going to try to stay on script as much as I can to make this go as smoothly as possible and to get you the information that you need. There's a lot of stuff that happens every day, and really the first thing I wanted to open with today is that I couldn't be more proud to be a member of the Lafayette Police Department. If you look around the room today, there's a lot of police officers in the room, including our commanders, Deputy Chief Payne, Captain Neil Dale, Captain Kurt Wolf, Captain Brad Bishop, several of our other command staff, our street crimes unit that you can get a chance to meet when we're done. But it really does take the hard work of all the men and women, the support staff that help us to really get the job done. And they work tirelessly. A lot of the work is done behind the scenes, a lot of things that are going on every single day that most people don't recognize, and the things that it takes to really effectively fight crime and keep our community safe. So they have tremendous responsibilities, and they care deeply about our community. And I think it's important for everyone to know that how much all of us do care about what happens every day. The LPD is committed to being the best police department we can possibly be. Our focus will always remain on our core purpose, which is the prevention of crime and the maintenance of order. We accomplish this mission in many ways, one of which includes those that are committing crimes, the arresting of those that commit crimes. But we're much more than a crime-fighting organization. And that's one of the things I think gets lost on a lot of people. It's not just about crime. There are so many other components to what we do every day. And I think it's vital to understand that arrests are the byproduct of activities that have already occurred. which means that, in a lot of cases, as much as we want to be a proactive agency, and a lot of what we do is reactive. We're reacting to what's occurring in the community, and not just, and Lafayette is very reflective of what's happening nationwide, as the mayor mentioned. So we have a lot of responsibilities, and I think it's interesting sometimes to think about that. To serve and protect. What does that really mean, to serve and protect? Many of you in the media have probably seen this, but a lot of community members probably have not. But what I'm holding in my hand here is this is our daily bulletin. And I just figured not to get crazy. I just grabbed yesterday's bulletin and kind of just talk about a few things, go through a few things, just to give you a little sampling of what it is that we do every single day within the police department. So this one's 8 pages long. This is a 24-hour period. And just looking at a couple of the things that right off the bat, responded to a sex offender who moved into our jurisdiction that didn't register as required, and that's something that we'll talk about later. One of the programs that we have. We'll just touch briefly on it. A female involved in an argument with her ex-boyfriend, a victim reporting a burglary, a drug arrest, a man arrested on a warrant, people cited for trespass, a person driving without a license, person driving while suspended, a hit-and-run crash, a traffic citation for a vehicle not stopping, father assaulted by son, females arrested for stealing items from a local grocery store, someone reported being shot by a pellet gun, a reported battery, and I could go down this list, but it just kind of gives you an idea of some of the things that we do on a daily basis. And a lot of the things, if I were to continue through here, aren't necessarily just about arrests. They're not about crimes that have been committed, but they're a lot of the ancillary things that occur in response to our daily activities. Just from last night, just a couple of press releases that went out. We do our best to try to make sure everybody understands what it is that we're doing every day, so we push out that bulletin, we send out press releases, we try to make it as easy as we can to make sure that everybody understands what's happening. But just last night, officers responded to Brady Lane, US 52, for an accident involving a pedestrian. US 52 was shut down for several hours while the police investigated it. Just a call like that, it's not just about a few officers responding there. A crash like that involves many different elements of a public safety response. Our policemen, our firefighters, our paramedics, sometimes TEMA, our accident reconstructionists, our FACT teams, all of these things that come out and play a part in these investigations to make sure that we're doing everything that we need to do. If there's a drunk driver involved, if there's alcohol or drugs in any of these crashes, these are the things that we need to investigate thoroughly. So when we turn these cases over to our prosecutor, who's with us here today, we have the best chance of getting a successful prosecution. Another case that we responded to last night, and this is in a press release that went out earlier, many of you may have seen it. The Lafayette Police Department responded to a theft in progress on Creasy Lane. 2 subjects, a male and a female, fled the scene in a vehicle after being confronted about stealing items. Responding officers arrived. They found a male with a stab wound. The male victim, who had been a bystander, had attempted to intervene and witnessed management confront a suspect who was female. When he attempted to stop the female, she allegedly pulled a knife, threatened him, and stabbed him in the process of getting away. The suspect fled in a vehicle, and I'll kind of skip through, but the police department found the vehicle, stopped the vehicle. The 2 subjects were taken into custody and later arrested. So one was charged with battery with a deadly weapon, a level 5 felony. The other was charged with assisting a criminal, a level 6 felony, where they were arrested for those charges, for those crimes. So that's just a good example of great police work right there. The case is happening. It's unfolding in real time. Officers respond. Our patrol officers do a fantastic job every day, and they're very busy. They're running all day long, all night long, And one of the things that we do very well, and I'll touch on a little bit later, is we respond to the things that really matter the most. We do an outstanding job, much, much better than the national average. So how do we keep Lafayette safe? And as an individual, we need to ask ourselves, what can I do, me as a police officer, but what can you as citizens do to keep the community the safe place that it is? Because if you listen to me here, it sounds crazy. There's a lot of stuff going on. I'm just talking about robberies and stabbing and stuff like that. But again, I want to reiterate, this is just those things, as much as we hear about them, they're really a small part of what happens every single day. These are just the things that we hear about. In the age of digital communication, information is flying, and it's flying quickly. And a lot of times, stories and information travels fast, and it gets repeated a lot of times, so we hear things over and over. And sometimes I think it gives us a little bit of a false impression. And as good of a police department as we are, which I do like to brag about our police officers, our sworn officers, all of our civilians that work with us, the one thing is certainly clear, and people have heard me speak before and know, and I mean this from the bottom of my heart, is that we cannot do this alone. We never have been able to do this alone, and we never will be able to do it alone. We have to partner with our community in order to keep Lafayette a safe place. So some of the things that I want to talk about, and we'll go into more detail later, but how good are we? What are the things that we're doing? What are some of the hidden sides? If you refer to crime statistics without getting too much into the detail, the number, and all this stuff is available, again, in transparency. If you want to look at what's happening, you can go right onto our fabulous new website. You can go right to our page, and you can pick up our annual bulletin that we publish. Everything that the police department is doing, we publish that once a year. Nice, neat package that shows all of our uniform crime report statistics, all the different activities that are going into the police department. On average, really for about the last 5 years, we've seen about right around a 5% increase in our calls for service. And that's increased to the number of property crimes and the number of violent crimes that we've been responding to. And just in 2014 alone, just kind of a snapshot of the year, we had over 300,000 phone calls come through our communications center. If anyone, maybe many of you have been in there, but most probably haven't, to sit in the communication room, it's really it's something else to watch, because the phones never stop ringing. They literally never stop ringing. Very rarely do our comm-techs get a break, and they do a fantastic job. Of those 300+ thousand phone calls that come in, that led to about 92,000 or so CAD responses, which means they're typing something in to our automated dispatch, and the police are going to respond and do something. It may not always lead to a report, but it does lead to some type of police response. And of that, we're just under 20,000 police reports that are generated. So that's a lot of activity. But what I really like to kind of brag about is when you look at all those numbers, and I'm just going to go to date so far in 2015. In our UCR stats, we've had 2,327 property crimes, and that's about 88, just under 89%, as the mayor mentioned, of our total crimes, and 297 violent crimes. So that accounts for right around 11%. Our solve rate on property crimes is right around 23%. And we've fluctuated over the last 5 years between 21 and 25%. And that's about, on average, 8 to 10% above the national average. Where I think we really shine, and I think this is where most people might not understand this, is that in our violent crimes rate, we have a solve rate currently this year of 75%. Either through arrest or exceptional clearance or by other means. 75%, so that's 3 out of 4 we're solving. And for the ones that aren't solved, there's a lot of them that just, we might be solving in other ways, we just can't document it. And to put that in perspective, the national average is really anywhere from about 42 to 48%, give or take a year. So that's just a perfect illustration of the professionalism that you have working for you here in our community. And so, as good as we are, and as I like to brag, the demand on our service, again, as I mentioned, is ever increasing. So we need to be as proactive and as creative as we can in order to create the greatest public value in our service to the community. One of those ways that we have some different programs and different things that we do, but the mayor mentioned our street crimes unit. So we brought Sergeant Milady here today. He's our commander for our street crimes unit, and I wanted to bring him up just to him to introduce himself. The members of our street crimes unit are in the back, and if you want to chat with them afterwards and just kind of get an idea about what they're doing every single day, you're welcome to do so. So I'd like to bring up Sergeant Milady.
Thank you, sir. You'll have to bear with me. I recently hit middle age, as I was told, and got eyeglasses. So I'll have to work through this on my speech. As the chief said, I'm Sergeant Milady. I've been with the Lafayette Police Department Street Crimes Unit for 3 out of the last 4 years. With that, it's been a lot of experience and a lot of growth that I've established as a police officer and then as a commander. I was assigned as a commander for the Street Crimes Unit in January. The Lafayette Police Department established the Street Crimes Unit in 2007 with the intended purpose of focusing on criminal activity taking place within the city. Officers on the unit operate as a team and self-initiate almost all their interactions with the public, with an overall focus of deterring and stopping criminal activity. The street crimes officers do not answer radio calls for service as regular patrolmen do, and focus their entire tours of duty to areas in which criminal activity is occurring. Several officers on the department have participated in the unit and have set the standard as current members that we as current members uphold. Each street crimes unit officer volunteers for this assignment and is then selected only after an internal interview with commanders of the police department. During the interview process, the officers are evaluated on how they have handled stressful situations, encounters with the public, and various other investigations. Once selected, the officers attend specialized training with regard to their assignment, work varying hours, and hardly ever have a set schedule. As you can imagine, criminals do not call the police department when they are committing crimes. So the officers volunteer in regards to their schedule changing on a daily basis. This keeps people on edge and gives us an edge to combat criminal activity in the city. Each officer makes this commitment to the community willingly and with full knowledge of the requirements and demands of being an officer on the Street Crimes Unit. I'm going to introduce the current members of the team, and I'd like for them to stand once I call their name. The current members are Officer Ron Domkowski with his canine partner Tommy, Officer Jason Walters, Officer Corey Elias, and Officer Kurt Sinks. Thank you, gentlemen. You may be seated. The Street Crimes Unit focus is expansive, but the most common focus of the unit has been on illegal narcotics and those crimes that are closely linked with illegal narcotics. From January to September of this year, the team has accrued 559 arrests, with almost 1/3 of those arrests being drug-related. To put their effort into perspective, this 5-man team only represents 3% of the officers on the department, but account for almost 10% of the arrests made this year. We can attribute most of our success as a unit to the cooperation we have with the community and the support we receive from within the police department. Cooperation between the community and the police is key to solving crime. The information sharing between the police and community lead to a better understanding to what criminal activity is taking place. Information we receive from the community is vital to the success of our mission to eradicate crime in Lafayette. We receive tips of criminal activity taking place in the city from citizens on an everyday basis, which lead to criminal investigations, which ultimately lead to safer streets. A recent example, not limited to, like I said, this happens almost every day that we are working with the community, and this one example is one of the only ones that I can bring up based upon ongoing investigations. A recent example of cooperation between the Street Crimes Unit, the Police Department, and the community was when community members became victims of alleged criminal gang activity. They came forth with information with regards to suspects' identity and locations, and with their cooperation between the community and the police officer, these alleged gang members were soon arrested based on the information provided by the community. In closing, we as police officers rely on a strong, positive relationship with the community that is based on mutual trust, integrity, and fairness. We believe the relationship currently exists within the Lafayette community, and we are proud to serve. We hope to not only continue this relationship, but also to strengthen it. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, everybody. We thought that was important to cover some of that information. My guess is there's less than 2 or 3% of the population in Lafayette that one, probably even know that we have a street crimes unit and don't have any idea what they're out there doing. And in that less than 9-month window, made over 500 arrests through their efforts to keep this community safe. And I think that is certainly noteworthy. And like I said, sometimes maybe we don't market ourselves as well as we should, but we're going to work on that so the community continues to know what is taking place. Let's look to the future now a little bit. I do, and I'll recognize some folks here in a minute, but I want to talk about a couple things first. One of the most significant changes that you'll see going into 2016 is that the Lafayette Police Department is going to start a new take-home vehicle program. And how this program was going to work, I'll give you a little bit of background. There's several people within the police department right now that have take-home vehicles based on their commander, their unit assignment, some type of specialty that they're involved with. They currently get a take-home vehicle. The way the new program is going to work is that we're going to have a take-home vehicle program for officers that live inside the city limits of Lafayette. We currently have 18 officers that already have take-home vehicles that live inside the city due to their specialties that they're involved with. And now we're going to offer the other 24 officers that live inside the city limits that same opportunity for a take-home vehicle. This will hopefully put an additional 24 vehicles in our neighborhoods every day, coming and going from work. Their officers will obviously have their vehicle and their equipment readily available. So we're trying to accomplish a few things with this. One, we want to put more vehicles, more visibility directly into our neighborhoods. We also want to encourage those officers that are currently living within the city limits to stay there, and any new officers that may come on the department, we hope that this will be an incentive to strongly encourage them to also live within the city limits of Lafayette. They'll be eligible for that car after they get through all their training and have completed that 2-year period to reach that first-class patrolman's status. But once they reach that, then they would be eligible for a take-home car. We also think that that will help increase the engagement in our communities by having that direct contact, and we think that is very important. I think you've heard that theme over and over today, that we can't do this alone. There has to be a community partnership, and we think this visibility, response time, engagement will certainly be a very positive step for the community. The other good part for us is there's a lot of data out there that actually shows that having take-home vehicle problem actually reduces your overall cost of your vehicles. Right now we have a lot of vehicles that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They put almost 50,000 miles on them a year, which means we get about 2 years out of them, and we have to trade them in because they're well over 100,000 miles because they run consistently in that 24-hour cycle. There's a lot of data out there that show when one person has that car, it's used for one cycle, and there's one, the way the maintenance work, that we'll actually get a lot of additional years out of that vehicle. Fortunately, thanks to the Lafayette City Council, and I originally told them I wasn't going to introduce them, but I've changed my mind. We have Bob Downing here and Ron Campbell and Lon Heidi. Because we have managed our money well, and because we have had pro-growth policies where the city's continued to grow, we're able to financially do this within our normal budget cycles. We don't need to ask for any additional funds or dip into our rainy day fund or anything to do that, we're able to do that in our normal budget cycles. I'd also like to recognize Norm Childress, who is here from our Board of Works. So Norm, thank you for being here also. The second item that I want to discuss today also involves the City Council and our 2016 budget. We're getting ready to make that presentation to the Council here in the future, and we have public safety is our top priority for the 2016 budget. Like I said, we've managed our money well, and we're able to do this. So in the 2016 budget, we're going to have 5 new sworn positions and 1 new civilian dispatcher, and that civilian dispatch position is going to be used anytime the street crimes unit is out. It's going to be used exclusively for the street crimes unit to help, again, even increase their efficiency more, where they'll have their own dispatcher assigned just to their activities while they're out. The other positions will be as followed: 1 for crime prevention, 2 additional street crime positions, an additional member to the drug task force, and a sergeant for the administrative services division. So we have strategically looked at where we think we can allocate these manpowers and give the chief some flexibility to do the other things within his current structure, and he's going to talk about that just in a minute. But again, that's what I'll be presenting to the City Council. I am confident that they will be supportive, and again, we can do this in our normal budget cycle without having to take any money out of our rainy day fund. So, and quite frankly, if we had to take a little bit of money out of our rainy day fund, I'd do it anyway, because sometimes doesn't pay to have the money sitting there when you have other needs that really need to be taken care of. But fortunately, we don't have to do that. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Chief Flannelly, and he's going to talk about some manpower allocations, and then I'll come back with some additional initiatives that we'll be presenting for 2016.
So what I'd like to do is touch on what the units that we're talking about, what they're currently doing, and why we feel that they're so important. And I think, again, it's just another opportunity to educate the public on all the things that we're currently undertaking to try to be as proactive as we can. So really the effort to get out in front of crime and activity as much as possible we do this in an effort to save time, so we can then reinvest that time into things that we value as a community, not just as a police department, but what do the citizens see every day that they want us to focus more time on. When we operate in a reactionary mode, it's very difficult sometimes to get out in front of certain things, and if you know, it's kind of the old proverb of the cat chasing its own tail. And so we're trying to, as best we can, break some of those cycles and get out in front of issues quickly. Before I touch on that, I kind of want to talk about a few things and put it in perspective. You know, in light of several events on a national level, back in December 2014, President Obama signed an executive order that established the task force on 21st century policing. The president charged the task force with identifying best practices and offering recommendations on how policing practices can promote effective crime reduction while building public trust at the same time. Because those things are not always mutually exclusive. The task force recommendations was to focus on 6 main topics, or what they call pillars, which were building trust and legitimacy, policy and oversight, technology and social media, community policing and crime reduction, offering training, education, and officer safety and wellness. The task force also offered 2 overarching recommendations to the president that they should create a national crime and justice task force to examine all areas of criminal justice and propose reforms. And as a corollary to this effort, the task force also recommended the president support programs that take a comprehensive and inclusive look at community-based initiatives addressing core issues such as poverty, education, and health and safety. The greater Lafayette community should take comfort in the understanding that none of these initiatives recommended at the national level as a result of some of the things that were going on in our current climate are new to the Lafayette Police Department. We've been focusing on these pillars and many others for many years. While there's much to learn and much that we do learn every single day from what other agencies are doing, we pride ourselves on being innovative and taking creative approaches to modern law enforcement. We focus on getting the best officers we can find, providing them with the best tools available, and then we put them out there in the community with you to police on a daily basis. And it sounds simple enough, but in practice, it's not really that easy. So some of the examples of things that we've been doing just over a few years, again, that people may not recognize is probably most people drive by it every day and might not even recognize that it's a police training center at the top of the hill. There we focus on professional development. We have an opportunity to train our police officers on all aspects of policing. We have the opportunity to bring in professional level training from all over the country to provide our officers with the best opportunities that we can. Our squad cars are literally rolling offices and equipment, they're filled with technology. It's a very dynamic working environment in our cars, but it includes state-of-the-art software, car cameras, and other equipment that's necessary for them to be able to do their job every day. Social media and outreach, we have efforts that have been ongoing for years, such as Nixle and Twitter, crime reports, and more recently, in the last couple of years, Nextdoor, which I'll talk a little bit more about. Annual policy reviews and testing to ensure our policies meet the best standards and our officers understand them and they understand law. We train annually on all these things. We actually train monthly on topics to make sure that our guys are staying current on all the things that they need to know. We have multiple partnerships. I can't even mention them all, but we're always looking for new ways to partner with different community groups and really anyone that wants to partner with us. I mean, recently we brought Nora Ashcraft into the building. She's our victim advocate. She represents all area law enforcement. She works for the YWCA, but we were able to give her some office space within the police department to try to make her work a little bit more efficient. We have crisis intervention training for all of our police officers through part of the new initiative with juvenile probation and policing the team brain. We're teaching our police officers all these new tools and things that are being recommended to provide the best quality police services that we can provide, and I'll touch on a few in a bit. One of our initiatives that we undertook last year was part of our strategic plan, and that was creating a crime prevention unit. And our crime prevention unit was established to help community members help themselves. And from a police perspective, it's always in our best interest to prevent crime from happening rather than responding to it after the fact. By engaging our community through outreach, training, education, we all benefit. And I think maybe some of you guys have been to some of these classes, but here's just a list just from this year of all the trainings that we've been putting on at our training center, opening it up to the public and welcoming and encouraging the public to come learn about what's happening in our community and how they can protect themselves and how they can best help us do our jobs. And we'll continue those initiatives going on, but it's the list is lengthy. When community members know about what crimes are occurring in their neighborhoods, they know what to look for. When we know what crimes are occurring, we know how to take measures, reduce the chance of becoming victims while simultaneously making it more difficult for would-be criminals to commit crimes. It's called hardening the target. When we make it hard on criminals, we create more opportunities as a law enforcement agency to catch them. For criminals to be uncomfortable, that's the most important thing. We never want them to be comfortable in an environment, and that's why it's so important for neighborhoods to really take control of what's happening and to work with us so we can help them. By strengthening these bonds with our neighborhoods, police to neighbor, neighbor to neighbor, and neighborhood to neighborhood, we foster the type of communication networks, we'll call that modern social networking, required to keep us all safe and free from crime and disorder. What are the things that our crime prevention unit is doing? Just as an example, we started an initiative this year where we're trying to reduce the number of false alarms that the police department is responding to. In 2014, we responded to almost 3,500 false alarms. Of those, less than 20 were actual alarms. So those responses involve multiple police officers. And a lot of times just as an example, if an officer is typing a report, he's going to stop what he's doing and he's going to go respond. If he's behind a potential drunk driver or investigating a certain crime and an alarm goes out nearby, he's going to stop what he's doing and he's going to go. So it's not just about time necessarily, the time that it takes 1, 2, 3 police officers to go check a building, maybe a door's been unlocked or something and then we have to search it or do those things. It's not just about that, it's really about flow also. And anyone that's worked in a busy environment, when your phone's ringing, your messages are going off and you're trying to concentrate to get things done, it can be very difficult to get done what you're trying to do. And police officers, we're no exception to that. So there's a lot of things that we're trying to get done in a day. So we're really looking to cut back on the number of these alarms. We're using an ordinance, been on the books for a long time. We've just never used it because we don't want to fine people for having a false alarm. We want businesses to be alarmed. We want residents to be alarmed. We just need them to operate functionally, and we need to make sure that people know how to operate them because it's very difficult for us to do all the things that we need to do and respond to these types of calls. So we're really looking to cut back on the number of those alarms. That's the strategy. But in order to initiate a program like this, it takes time and it takes manpower and it takes effort. So you have to be able to dedicate resources to it in order to set up the program and get it running. And we're, just from what I showed you earlier, we're all pretty busy. So having these people and these personnel freed up to be able to do these tasks makes a big difference. ComStat, one of the things that we do all the time, most people may not or understand this, but we meet once a month. Our city is divided up into 9 districts, and every officer during every shift is responsible for a district, and then we have roaming officers and traffic cars and other things that are all going on simultaneously. Within these ComStat districts, there's a commander that's assigned to each one, and there's 8 officers assigned to each ComStat commander. And throughout the course of each month, they're responsible for monitoring the activity that's going on in their area, and we meet and we talk about these things and we formalize strategies and plans to try to stop crime, prevent crime. If it's nuisance issues, quality of life issues, these are all things that we're doing in these ComStat issues, in these meetings. And we've been doing them for a long time and we'll continue to do those. Where our crime prevention and our ComStat kind of intertwine is that in our effort on Nextdoor, and anyone that's heard me speak has heard me talk about Nextdoor. I continue to promote it because it really is the modern day neighborhood. Whereas, back in, I know when I was a kid, if I were to get in a little bit of trouble in the neighborhood, I think my parents would know before I even got home, just because that's what social networking was, a phone call, a whisper here and there. And so we were real concerned about what might happen when we got home. But in this technology world, we're all kind of separated by technology with our phones and our computers, nice big screen TVs. I mean, there are people that leave their house and come home and never interact with any of their neighbors. And the Pew Research backs that up. And what the Pew Research also backs up is if we can get people talking in a digital environment, we can also get them talking face to face, and that's how we really start to build relationships in neighborhoods. And that's when people start to care about each other a little bit more, and we need more of that. Our efforts on Nextdoor have been fantastic. People are really taking root in it. Our ComStat districts are posting several times a month about things. We can direct messages directly to neighborhoods through Nextdoor. We currently have just under 6,000 people subscribe to Nextdoor, right around 5,300 households. We have about 31,000 households within the city. So right now we're right around 15%. And our goal by the end of this year is to be right around 18%. We'd love to get to 20 because we know we can reach a tipping point in there where we'll accelerate use and we will strengthen neighborhoods by having people communicate. And if you want to get with Lieutenant Gossard, who runs our crime prevention unit, also our community outreach, he can give you some examples of the things that have been shared on Nextdoor that have prevented crimes, that have solved crimes, and that have helped neighbors out. I mentioned earlier we have a traffic unit that's staffed by Sergeant Robinson, and we have Tech Divine that runs our hit-and-run investigations, and 4 other officers that work with them every day. Last year we responded to right around, I think in 2014 it was 3,800 crashes. Of those, 564 involved personal injuries, 637 were hit and runs, and we had 2 fatalities. In 2015 to date, we've already had 2,900 crashes. We're a little bit ahead of last year's pace. 384 injury accidents, 519 hit and run accidents, and unfortunately 5 fatalities. Our unit, our traffic unit's designed to free up time for our patrol officers so they can spend time in our neighborhoods. And they account for about 34 to 38%, depending on the year, of the crash investigation. So that small unit, very similar to our street crimes unit, is doing a lot of the work. And certainly one of the things that I wanted to focus on today was our drug task force. The Lafayette Police Department has committed significant resources to the fight against drugs and the ravages of drugs in our community. We currently have a lieutenant that's assigned to the task force that supervises the multi-jurisdictional unit, and this is in partnership with the West Lafayette Police Department, Purdue, the Sheriff's Department, and the Prosecutor's Office. And we're all working together to try to get ahead of, as best we can, some of the issues with drugs. He also has a sergeant that works with him, and we have currently 4 detectives that are assigned there, and with this additional person, we're going to add a 5th detective to that unit to really bolster our efforts in that. And so we asked, why is this important? I mean, I think most people understand the problem that drugs are creating in our community. And I think everyone in this audience probably knows somebody that's either used drugs or has a family member or somebody that's affected by it. It's very difficult as a community, if we rely on law enforcement for intervention, to solve this problem. So we really need people to work together and work with us to provide us the information that we need in a timely manner so we can start our investigations with more information so we can solve them quicker. The sooner that we can solve these crimes, hopefully the less victimization that we can have on the back end. Police, with drugs, though, we're never going to be able to police our way out of it. Heroin is, every heroin user eventually becomes a heroin dealer, and so we can't keep pace with that. The spice use that we're seeing is just it's frightening, quite frankly. Spice is not synthetic marijuana. It's more like PCP, and people that are taking it and using it are reacting in very violent and irrational ways, and it's creating attacks on our resources and in our emergency rooms and our emergency personnel who have to come out and respond to those things. So everybody understands that illicit drugs are against the law, and some of them are creating some significant strains on our resources. So we really need to do everything that we can as a community and as a group to get out in front of this. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind with this effort is that anything that we can do to prevent one more heroin overdose and one more tragedy, one more family that has to experience that, I think it's incumbent upon all of us to do whatever we can. And one thing I challenge people is that if we know somebody or have information about somebody that's using drugs, by choosing not to say anything, maybe because we don't want to get involved, maybe we're worried about ramifications from a family perspective or a friend perspective, the only thing I can say, the only thing worse than not saying anything is not saying anything and then something really tragic happens, like an overdose. I would much rather someone get arrested and go to jail for a year or 2 than overdose and die. And our ultimate goal is to not arrest anybody for drugs. I think if we can, as a community, direct people to the proper resources and get them into treatment and hopefully prevent them from even starting that type of activity, then we all benefit from it. Because when you look at, of those property crimes that we're investigating, I would venture to say 80% of those are all crimes that are committed to fuel, cash, to get drugs, to buy drugs. People aren't robbing our convenience stores to go home and feed their families. They're robbing them so they can go out and buy their next fix of heroin. And that's just the way it is. And to think otherwise, we'd just be fooling ourselves. So we're taking it through our crime prevention efforts by working with stores, teach them how to harden their targets, make it more difficult for people to rob, steal, and victimize us as businesses and community members is very important. We already heard from the street crimes unit, so I'm not going to touch on that. But I think just from the volume of the work that they're able to produce in conjunction with our patrol division, who allows our street crimes unit to be able to go out and function like that, it's proven to be very effective, and that's something that we want to double down on our efforts there and see what else we can accomplish that way. In our administrative services division, we're going to add a sergeant there because we're also in a as we add additional personnel, we're also at a point where we're losing a lot of officers to retirement. Just Sergeant Bob Baumgartner, almost 39 or almost 30 years of service, just retired earlier this week. Sergeant Rich Dexter about 6 weeks ago. We have one of our detectives, his family, they're moving to another community. They're moving out of the city, so there's always attrition in police departments. And the most important thing that we can do as a police department is hire the best police officers that we can find, and that's not easy, especially in today's climate. There's a lot of negative connotations that go with law enforcement, but I'm here to tell you today that there is no more rewarding career than what we do, and I think all of us are blessed and honored to serve every day. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Mayor Rosworski, and I appreciate all of you coming today. I'll be available afterwards if anyone has any additional questions, and several of our command staff will also be present if you have a question.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, sir.
Well, I think the Chief's passion and the depth of his intellectual capacity and how he analyzes things is obvious, and we certainly appreciate all his efforts. I can tell you from the texts and emails that I get all hours of the day and the weekend, he never stops thinking about what's going on in this community and what can we be doing. Another initiative that will be taking place here is we're going to expand. As many of you know, about a year and a half, not quite 2 years ago, we actually took over downtown parking enforcement. We brought that in-house, and we were using some technology that's allowed us to be, really efficient. And so we've discussed, and the City Council approved a while back, we put the downtown parking personnel actually into the Ordinance Violation Bureau. And so what we're going to do next now is they have the manpower, and Kevin Harris is here, the Director of Parking Operations. We're actually going to expand their area. They currently just do the core of downtown, and we're going to assign them now to go clear over to Union Street, up to 18th Street, 18th Street down to Perrin, Perrin over then to Main, Main down to 11th, and then over to the Bauer Community Center, around the park there, and back into the core of downtown. And we have maps available for you. It's part of your press packet, and we have a big map available for you. And what we're going to do with that is, every day, several times a day, that's going to put another set of eyes and ears driving through those core downtown neighborhoods. And we think that's going to be very beneficial. They can handle parking issues. If there are parking issues, because they're in the Ordinance Violation Bureau, they can handle abandoned cars, junk vehicles, other ordinance situations that we all know. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the broken window theory, that taking care of those little things like that and helping keep those neighborhoods cleaned up can play a big role in sending the message about crime. And so they'll be able to coordinate with the engineer's office. That car's visible, and we know we have time to do that, and we think by making those extra passes, they'll be able to call things into the police department. But thirdly, what it does, it will allow those district officers in that core neighborhood not to have to handle those types of calls, so they can focus on more serious crimes, have longer times to do their investigations, and do follow-up work, because we've got other people helping do some of that smaller stuff, which will free up their time. So we're we feel that that is a very good step as we move forward. Also, as we deal with neighborhoods, we know that we have to work on the quality of life in our neighborhoods, whether it's safety, the quality of the housing, parks and trails, all those things that help make neighborhoods strong, good sidewalks, good street lighting, all those things that we do. But the other side, sometimes we have to deal with difficult properties. We deal with some of those through the Lafayette Hearing Authority. Many of you in the media has followed that, where we've been doing that for several years, and we've tore many junk properties down that have been detrimental to the neighborhood. We've got a lot of properties fixed up because people complied to meet the code when they knew that we were serious about if they didn't, those properties were going to be tore down. But we also have some abandoned properties in the community. Now, we're fortunate that we don't have, I think I saw where South Bend was working on 1,000 abandoned properties. We don't have numbers like that, but we do have abandoned properties that we want to address. And fortunately, this July, a change in state law took place that gives us some new opportunities. And so at this time, I'd like to introduce Jackie Chosnick, who's the Deputy City Attorney, and she's going to tell you about what we're going to be doing in the future with abandoned properties in relationship to the change in state law.
Thank you, Mayor. Over the last several years, the state legislature has passed pieces of legislation to provide municipalities tools to deal with abandoned housing. The most recent change established a procedure for dealing with abandoned housing by creating a special abandoned housing tax sale. An abandoned property tax sale can speed up the sale of these abandoned properties to allow responsible property owners to acquire the properties at a more reasonable price and in a more timely manner, which should allow them to invest in the property, which will contribute to the neighborhood. In a traditional tax sale, the minimum bid price is the amount of past due real estate taxes and assessments. For certain properties, in particular if they've been abandoned, the amount of these past due taxes exceed the fair market value of the real estate. However, the minimum bid price for a property that is included in the abandoned property sale is related to the cost of the sale, not the past due property taxes. This will allow investors the ability to acquire the property for a reasonable price and have additional funds available to invest in the property itself. Another benefit of the abandoned property sale is that the purchaser of the property can obtain a deed immediately following the sale, as opposed to waiting for the expiration of the 12-month redemption period that is in the traditional tax sale. This will allow a new property owner immediate access to begin investment in the abandoned property, benefiting both the abandoned structure and the neighborhood. Before a property can be included in the abandoned property tax sale, the property, after notice to all interested parties, must be declared abandoned by the Lafayette Hearing Authority. A list of abandoned properties will be presented to the Hearing Authority at its November meeting. The Hearing Authority can declare a property abandoned if certain criteria are met, including but not limited to if the windows or entrances are boarded up, windows are broken or unrepaired, doors are smashed, broken, or unhinged, or if there's rubbish, trash, or other debris that is accumulated on the property. Although not all properties that have been abandoned will be eligible for the abandoned property sale, the city will continue to monitor these properties and seek a determination of abandonment from the Hearing Authority to encourage property owners to take responsibility for these properties or work toward another solution to get these properties in the hands of someone with the ability to invest in the property and put it back into use. The City Attorney's Office will continue to work closely with the Engineer's Office and the Lafayette Police Department to identify and monitor these abandoned properties. In addition, we encourage all citizens who believe there's an abandoned property in their neighborhood to report that through the city's Action Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. Just to reiterate just a little bit, so everybody knows, we've really tried to look at a comprehensive approach here, and we do many different things. As I indicated, we have the Lafayette Hearing Authority. We also work with the Tippecanoe County Commissioners, and we acquire property from them. Certain times, we now are going to have this tool that we're going to use, and so we're going to use every tool available to us to work on these properties to make sure they don't become detriments to the neighborhood or locations where criminal activity, meth labs, and things like that can take place. One other thing that we're going to do this year as part of our budget process also, and I know several of the council members have talked to me about this for many years, and we just again we're careful with our money, but we can do it. We're actually going to add in 2016 an additional building inspector. And what that building inspector's primary role is going to be, we have the abandoned houses, we have the ones that go to the hearing authority, we have things we can get from the commissioners, but we have this gap where we've always struggled with those properties that kind of fall in the middle there. So maybe they're not abandoned, and maybe they're not totally unsafe, but they have a lot of attributes that are deteriorating the neighborhood. They don't meet what's called the Boca Maintenance Code. And so this building inspector's primary function is going to be to look at those properties in those neighborhoods and to work to get those fixed up to where they reach a suitable level. And I think that, coupled with all the other things that we're doing and all the other tools that we have available to us, we're making a big dent in things now, but I think that will expedite what we can do with some of these properties, and I think that is very important. It all sends the right message of what we're trying to do in our community and our neighborhood. So as part of the 2016 budget process, we'll be submitting for that additional inspector. And again, I think many people in the community will welcome that in our neighborhoods and our organized neighborhoods to help Stanley and some of the other inspectors stay caught up on things that we need to take a look at. The other thing that I wanted to talk about today is, many of you may have heard that the City of Lafayette recently consolidated our Community Development Department into the Lafayette Housing Authority. And Michelle Reynolds is here today, who's the director of the Lafayette Housing Authority. We think that's going to help us with our efficiency when it comes to dealing with housing issues also. And so we're thrilled that we were able to enter into that partnership. It also reduces one layer of government. That's probably always a good thing to do. But along with that, something that we want to talk about today is too that Michelle has entered into with the Lafayette Police Department. We've had it for a while, an MOU, the Tippecanoe County Sheriff's Department, and the West Lafayette Police Department. So the Housing Authority will be sharing information with the police department when it comes to criminal activity that be taking place in units where vouchers are being used, or those types of assistance. There'll be that sharing of information that will allow us to ensure that the people that are using those programs, that are using for the right reasons, have safe, affordable housing, and people that are using those programs for the wrong reasons and are involved in criminal activity are going to be held accountable for their actions. And just in a very short period of time, just to give you a few of the statistics, back in 12, let's just go back to 2012, for drug activity and criminal activity, the number of people that were removed from the program was 5. In 13, the number of people that were removed from the program for criminal or drug activity was 5. We have these new MOUs, consolidation. Michelle is doing a very good job, and people are sharing information. Through August of this year, there's already been 20 people removed. And so there is going to be a level of accountability for people. And again, it's another tool, this information sharing that we're going to use to work on reducing crime and criminal activity. As we conclude today, there's just a couple points. I know it's been about an hour and 5 minutes, and I appreciate your patience, but I think it's important. We've thought about this for a long time, and this will not be the last press conference. We're going to do more of these to get information out. We are researching a couple other programs and a couple other laws that may be effective for us and ordinances in this community. And as we continue to do that research and get ready to roll things out, we will certainly have information like this. We want you to have all the information. But I think we wanted to spend this time with you today to talk about what we're doing, but also what we have been doing. We've taken a very comprehensive approach. But again, I have to stress, it's going to take a community effort. We cannot arrest our way out of this situation. The use of heroin, meth, spice that is out throughout the whole United States, we're going to need to work together with all our state and federal officials to look at detox, to look at treatment. Local mental health services. Local governments cannot afford to do the enforcement side and the whole treatment side. We don't remotely have the financial capacity to do that. I saved this newspaper clipping. I was glad to see, this is a Journal and Courier back on September the 2nd, where it says heroin deaths prompt drug plan, and Governor Pence called to launch a statewide task force throughout the whole state to see what on a state level can be done. And you probably saw where Senator Donnelly and Congressman Brooks then talked about them studying this for Indiana on the federal level, and that's what it's going to take. And so I want to encourage all of the citizens of this community to let your state and federal legislators know that this drug issue and the crime that it's leading to is a priority for our communities, and we need help. And there's going to have to be a comprehensive strategy to solve this, and it can't fall just to local communities to handle the enforcement side, try to handle the mental health side, the detox side. The capacity is just not here. But I do believe that working together, we can make a difference. And there's a lot of good things going on besides just enforcement. Things going on like Read to Succeed, programs in our schools, Big Brothers and Big Sisters. I want to call all of our citizens. This is the final piece. This is the call to action. We need all of our citizens to take a role in fighting crime. And whether that is volunteering for one of the groups I just talked about, things as simple as turning on your porch light, putting up a light in your alley. If you haven't attended a neighborhood meeting, attend your neighborhood meeting, join a neighborhood crime watch. I encourage our faith-based organizations, like we've seen with the Peace Walk and the Prayer Walk, to get outside the walls of the church and get into the neighborhoods. Get out there, and I don't want to use the term boots on the ground because Dave might use that some way, but to really get out in the neighborhoods and make a difference. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take all of us working together to be able to do that. Everybody can volunteer. Everybody can give back a little bit to make Lafayette a safer place and a better place for all of us to live. Our mantra for this whole community should be, not in my neighborhood, not in my city. And that's the mentality that we all need to take each and every day. Not in my neighborhood, not in my city. From the neighborhoods to the police departments to our faith-based organizations, we all need to take that direction. This message is to the parents. I also want to encourage the parents in the community to have those difficult discussions with their kids about drug abuse, about heroin and spice. And not just once in a while, but several times a month. Talk to your kids about the reality. Have those hard conversations, because they're going to at some point encounter it. And we have to, as a community, do all of those things that strengthens every member of our community, from the very young to the very old. And that's what it's going to take. And so again, I want to encourage parents, grandparents, caregivers, everyone to talk about that and to make sure that we're all working together. And the last piece, and Pat's touched on it a little bit, you know, there's been a lot of negative publicity around the country over the last couple years about different things that have happened. And as Pat said, that makes it a much more difficult climate for police officers to work in and for communities to thrive. And the reality is, we see it over and over, hundreds of times, anytime something happens. But the reality is, each and every day in this country, thousands of police officers, men and women, get up, go to work, risk their lives to keep all of us safe. And we all know they don't do it for the money. It's a calling, not just a career. And there are heroic things that happen, and there are things that never get any attention, where they help people day in and day out. Now, there have been incidents that have occurred where policemen have done things they should not have done. And even in our own department, there's been things that happen that police officers shouldn't have done. But the reality is, you deal with those and you move forward. You deal with it and you move forward. That should not diminish the thousands of heroic acts and the people that risk their lives every day throughout this country. And if we're going to have a safe community, there has to be a bond between the police officers of the community and the citizens of the community. It's the only way we're going to send the message to people involved in criminal activity, not in my neighborhood, not in my city. And so today, my request to all the citizens of the community and to all the police officers, every single member of the Lafayette Police Department, that we all reaffirm that bond between each other going forward. And so every time somebody in this thinks about doing something wrong, they're going to know, you know what? Every time I turn around, somebody's going to call the police. They're going to watch what I do, and the police are going to respond. That we reaffirm that bond with each other, that we send that message to anybody thinking about criminal activity, not in my neighborhood, not in my city. Thank you. I'm available for questions. If you have any questions, the chief and I are around. If anybody'd like to ask anything, please feel free to come up over here and we'd be happy to answer them. Thank you.